Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeff Abbott, one of the co-founders of Global Scaling Academy, and I'm very pleased to be with you here today at the second of our webinars as we prepare for the MIT Venture Scaling Bootcamp that will take place at the end of September. I'm here today to do two things principally. One is to review the concepts that Chris Ye presented last week about Blitzscaling in a much more condensed fashion. And two, to begin to get to know you and your specific scaling challenges, and to give you an opportunity to share with us those challenges so that we can calibrate our presentation and the work that we do together to your specific needs. So again, Global Scaling Academy was created by the authors of Blitzscaling, and our goal is to share the concept of Blitzscaling around the world, and we're delighted to be partnered with MIT Venture Scaling Bootcamps to do that. And we want your help because we need your help to understand your specific challenges. So again, today, the objectives of our webinar: to review the Blitzscaling concepts, to understand who's here. Who are you out there? Tell us a little more about your companies, the challenges you're facing, area by area within your company, to facilitate conversation, which will take place both through an online facilitation tool that we'll be using, as well as through the chat that Mariah from the MIT team will be managing. And this is designed to enable you to influence the content of the bootcamp. This is, after all, for you. And what we need to understand in advance is, what are the principal areas that everyone is struggling with? And what are the main areas that we can focus on helping you better understand and apply the concepts of Blitzscaling to your ventures? And then what are your specific challenges that maybe we can address one-to-one during the one-to-one time that we'll have with teams during the bootcamp itself, as well as during the follow-up time that we'll have after the bootcamp to work with each of you one-on-one. So the process of getting to know you is starting right now, so don't be shy. Don't hesitate to share either through the chat or through this facilitated tool. So I want to share a little bit about the tool. As you see at the beginning of each of the slides, there's a website. It's menti.com, and the code for today's session is 289235. And how is this going to work? Well, as we get to particular slides where I'm collecting feedback, you will open that website URL on your browser or on a mobile device, and you will type in that code. And what you'll see on my screen is the aggregate results of everyone responding. So as people respond and share information, we'll start to collectively get a sense who's here, what type of business they're running, and what type of challenges they're facing. And in addition to that, you will have the opportunity to type very specific responses that will also appear on the screen with your scaling challenges. So everyone is going to begin to get a sense of who we are as a group, because after all, a boot camp is a very intimate, very intense experience that we all go through together. We want you to start to understand who one another are, so that you can come best prepared to help one another as peers as well. So if there's any questions, you can ask them at any time during the chat, again, which Mariah is moderating. If not, I'm going to get started with the quick review. So as Chris presented last week, Blitzscaling is the pursuit of rapid growth by prioritizing speed over efficiency in the face of uncertainty. And if you put it out on a graph or a 2x2 matrix, as everyone is taught in business school, here's what it looks like. You have uncertainty versus certainty on the left, and efficiency versus speed on the right, and Blitzscaling, as always, is the top right quadrant. And we also discussed how Blitzscaling is different than these other states because it's a state that you can fall in and fall out of. It's a state that you can choose consciously for strategic reasons when you believe that you're in a large market with winner-take-all characteristics where there's a tremendous advantage to being the first mover at scale. It's also something that you can do as a response to competitors who come into your market and they begin to blitz scale, and you have the choice of either being the one that wins the Cadillac or getting the set of steak knives in the competition. In other words, you're in a market where coming in second place is about as good as losing. So this is the summary of blitzscaling as it looks like on a matrix. And okay, I'm seeing a question here. We want you to use the chat as a place to ask questions. Okay, perfect. So how do you define uncertainty? Well, uncertainty is usually the place in starting where you don't really have a clear product yet. You don't have clear product market fit. You're still being very, very cautious about the limited resources that you have. In other words, you haven't found that replicable pattern yet that's permitting you to scale. Uncertainty could also be in the case of blitzscaling that you have identified this very large winner-take-all global market, and you're convinced that it is such a market and that there's tremendous advantage to being the first mover at scale. And in spite of not having all of these other touch points of certainty, you still believe that it is warranted and sensible to raise a lot of capital and go after it at lightning speed, in spite of the uncertainty. So the conscious decision to blitzscale. Okay. We'd like to know if our model is scalable. We've taken your online test and our model is 50% scalable. Okay, great. We're going to cover that in the next webinar, so hold tight. The other thing that we need to understand about blitzscaling is that it's iterative. So the first thing you do are do things that don't scale, like the founders of Airbnb who went out with their cameras and personally took the pictures of the listings, the apartments, because they wanted to prove for themselves that listings with better photos would convert better. So they actually bought cameras and went out and did them themselves. Obviously, that didn't scale, but when they had proven to themselves that that in fact had a meaningful impact on conversion, then they took the time to build a replicable process around that. So the goal is to find one thing very tightly focused that does scale, and to get to that next stage of blitzscaling. And then while you're doing that, and while you keep that flywheel spinning, to find a way to grow, to multitask, to create a new thread, also applying those same lessons of experimentation and doing things that don't scale until you've got another line of business that's continually scaling, and so on, and so on, and so on. Hey, great to meet you, John Hansen from Brazil. Looking forward to meeting you as well. And Vasily from Punta Cana, thanks for being with us. So the idea is find something that scales, see if you can blitz scale it, and then keep finding new things. So case in point, look at all the new products that Facebook has ordered, or WeChat, or look at all the new things that Uber continues to do, right? They're not just staying in the same product category. So what do you do if you want to blitz scale? Well, you have to define a blitz scalable market, find the capital to scale, figure out how not to blow up your rocket ship as you grow so fast, and see if you can get to profit. You're developing a plan for global domination. And what do we describe as a blitz scalable market? It's one that has the following characteristics. It's a very big market. What is a big market? Is it a $100 million market? Is it a $1 billion, a $10 billion, or a $100 billion market? Well, take a look at the unicorns today and what their valuations are, and also look at the companies that have managed to raise tremendous amounts of VC funding without yet being profitable, and look at the size of their markets. And so the answer here is the bigger the better. Massive distribution. Massive distribution usually means leveraging the networks of other partners, quickly finding ways to get on top of whether it's a retail market or an online market, or leveraging virality through existing communities, existing platforms and marketplaces. High gross margins. You may ask, well, how do I get to high gross margins if my current business doesn't have high gross margins? And you may ask yourself, well, how do I get to a big market if I'm not currently in a big market? And those are exactly the kind of questions that the Venture Scaling Bootcamp is designed to help us get thinking about, because Blitzscaling doesn't happen accidentally. In fact, many new companies are started by people with the backing of VCs who are specifically designing business models that have these characteristics. And our goal is to get you thinking as early as possible about, if you don't rank well on some of these variables, how can you change that? What kind of experiments you can run, or what kind of choices you can make differently to improve your ranking or your assessment, if you will, in each of these areas. The next one is a business with network effects. For example, there is a VC firm located in Palo Alto. It's called NFX. It was started by James Courier, one of the early guys at Facebook, and they exclusively invest in startups that have strong network effects. They have done a study that showed that 70% of all of the value created in the software industry since 1995 was created by companies with strong network effects. The study excluded Microsoft, which was already big at the time. And so, big market, as big as possible. Massive distribution, consciously thinking about how to partner with others to quickly get to market. High gross margins. If you don't have them, how can you get to them? Network effects. If you don't know what they are, if you don't have them, how can you learn about them and begin to consciously design them into your product? And can you avoid running into the growth limiters? Can you avoid suffering from a lack of product market fit, or suffering from the inability to scale your organization operationally, whether that be in human or infrastructural physical terms? So those were the keys to defining a Blitz scalable market, and those are essentially the things that our short assessment focuses on. Then find the capital to scale. Number one, by making a lot of money. So if you are a business with high gross margins and strong network effects, quite likely you'll be throwing off a lot of cash, or you'll be able to convince others that they should help you raise a lot of money. Spend a lot of someone else's money first is usually easier. And if you have a good scalable business model and know how to tell the story well, you'll be more likely to be able to raise capital. Number three, don't blow up the rocket ship as you prepare to reach escape velocity. Be prepared, be looking around the corner at how your small teams will grow into large teams, how the generalists that started the company over time will have to be augmented by specialists or become specialists themselves if they're able to. How the founders who start out as individual contributors need to evolve into managers and even executives, each in turn managing teams and teams of teams, if they're able to make that transition. And the data shows that fewer than 50% of individuals are able to make that shift in a particular leadership role from one stage of scaling to the next. Be prepared for needing to move from dialogue, where you're able to sit around a table and talk to everyone, to broadcasting. In other words, crafting a much more finely tuned, well-crafted message that is designed to reach people rather that you may have never spoken to in the past week. You'll move from personal inspiration, hey, let's try that, I think that would work, to having enough data and insisting on using that data to make those decisions. You'll move from a single focus, like in the earlier slide about iterative nature of blitzscaling, to multi-threading. You won't be working on just that first product or feature. You'll be perhaps working on multiple tiers of a product, or even the same business in different markets and different businesses in different geographies, et cetera. In the process of that, you'll have to become less like a pirate and more like a Navy captain in order to interact effectively, professionally, and respectfully with all the communities and stakeholders that you'll come into contact with. And you'll have to embrace chaos throughout this process, because fast scaling and blitz scaling is a process that never ends. It's not like you reach a summit or a plateau and then everything calms down. You need to understand which aspects of bad management to tolerate. Yes, that's a problem, or yes, that person isn't the right person right now in the job, but they're good enough for now, and the most important thing is to keep moving. Launch a product that embarrasses you. Let fires burn. If it's something that's not going to burn the house down and growth is more important and growth is still occurring, let it go for now. Doing things that don't scale, sometimes ignoring your customers, raising too much money, because it's always better to raise money when you can and then have it in the bank and have it ready to deploy than it is to try to raise it when things have gone south. And finally, never forget that you'll need to continue to evolve your culture throughout this process. Evolving it in a sense that doesn't lose the core values, that maintains the original vision and commitment that the founders started out with, but evolves it to fit the way the business shifts, the new geographies that you've entered into, the diverse employees that you've brought into the team, in a way that allows everyone to feel a part of the journey. And finally, get to the place where you're making a profit. And at this point, you may be able to stop blitzscaling. You may have a mature and profitable business that you'll now have the opportunity to go back and manage for efficiency. So blitzscaling was the conscious choice to ignore, to some degree, all the best practices that you might learn about in business school or practice in a large corporation, because growth and achieving growth quickly was more important than doing everything perfectly and everything in, let's say, the most textbook manner. Go back, squeeze the profit out, turn it into an efficient business so that you can take the proceeds of that business now and use it as the launch platform to help you create new blitzscaling businesses. Case in point, Amazon. At some point, if you've done this, you'll have the opportunity to sell out your business. And then at that point, it comes back to potentially the very original question that you all started out with when you were starting your business to begin with, which is, what do you really want from your life? Why are you doing this? Are you solving a problem and you'll never be done solving it because it's your life's work? Was your goal to make 100 million or $1 billion as quickly as possible so that then you could go do the next thing? Is it good enough to be rich and exit quietly? Or do you want to be rich and continue to be the king, like so many of the highly egotistical and well-known technology startup founders who continue to stay in the game, seemingly always wanting to be on top? Are you in this more for reputation, to have been the one who invented the internet? Or are you in this for honor? So there's a lot of questions that only you can answer. And so the next thing I want to get into here is, and it looks like we've already had some answers. So some people may have jumped ahead, which is not unusual. But this is the first question in menti.com. And the question here was, which best describes your business model? So as the Global Scaling Academy and MIT Venture Scaling Bootcamp team gears up to work with you, we've got some choices to make. We need to know what types of materials to focus on, what type of Max Hodges. You go to menti.com on any device, your laptop or mobile device, and type in 289235, and there you will be able to answer this and all ensuing questions. And so again, we're answering these questions because we want to know how much of the time to devote to different business models. We also have a choice on some of the mentors that we bring with us and that we invite to work with you before and after the program. So your choices here are helping us to prepare to, as specifically as possible, address your needs. So as we see here, the numbers continue to shift. And it looks like we've got a pretty pretty nice balance really between B2C, B2B, and social impact. And I'm not sure if I permitted people to answer twice, but yeah, and sometimes, Vasily, the answers are not purely dichotomous. So I understand that there can be mixed cases. You could be a B2B social impact business. So these are just general categories. And there will be perhaps a time later to share a little bit more about your specific business and the mix that you see. But anyway, this is directionally helpful, hopefully, to all of us to get a sense that we really do have a nice balance of participants coming in terms of the business models. And so that means that we're going to try to structure the venture scaling bootcamp in ways that acknowledges and addresses all of those, and also opportunities that maybe allow us to group people who are exclusively working on one versus the other, so that we can cleave people off and not have everybody in the same session if it's not as relevant to everyone. Great. So this is excellent feedback. By the way, if somebody misses this, or if you want to go back and complete some of this later, these links continue to work, not just during the webinar. So this is helpful. If anyone has a question or comment about this in particular, as you can see, I hope we are all listening in the Zoom webinar chat. Feel free to drop any questions about this and what we're doing with this into the chat. So the next question is, which country is your business based in or headquartered in? From what I've heard from the MIT team, there's been a great diversity of people from all over the world applying for the program, and this is fantastic. It's often asked, is blitzscaling possible in markets that may not be Silicon Valley? And certainly the opinion of Reid Hoffman and Chris Ye, the authors of the book, is absolutely it is. And in fact, that's what Global Scaling Academy was formed to try to do, was to take these ways of thinking and working outside of Silicon Valley, and to help both entrepreneurs and the investors that support them and the communities that support them in understanding this slightly different way of thinking. So wow, this is incredible. We've got Latin America, we've got Russia, we've got Africa and India, Central America. This is fantastic. Looks like we're all going to get a workout on our multilingualism during the boot camp. Amazing. Okay, so the next question is, you're based in one of these countries that's been listed here. Where are you trying to scale to? Have you started scaling in your home market, or in your home market and other places? Hold on. It looks like I have somehow not got the right, yeah. Education, innovation, okay. Super, this is helpful. So, so I think here, we're getting a mix of answers: education, innovation. We're getting a mix of geographic markets and sort of industry segments and markets. And that's okay. I think I was more specifically looking, to see if you're sort of in Latin America wanting to scale in Latin America, if you're in North America wanting to scale to Europe. But this is all really, really helpful. Okay. Yeah, so you can answer a number of times here. Please continue to just answer as long as the application will allow you to answer, because these responses are helpful to us. Cool, all right. So Vasily is in Punta Cana, scaling to the US market and Latin America. Excellent. Looks like you picked an attractive place to work. And of course, feel free to add any additional context over here in the Zoom webinar chat if you want to share anything a little more specific. Okay, I'm going to move on. And one of the other things that Chris reviewed last week was the stages of blitzscaling. And the notion here is that a company, as it scales, reinvents itself at somewhat predictable stages of growth. And Chris and Reed explain in the book that these numbers are not meant to be hard and fast. It was easy to express them in orders of magnitude. A family described as 1 to 10, roughly. A tribe, 10 to 99. A village, 100 to 999 employees. A city, 1,000 to 9,999. And a nation, over 10,000. Now, that's not to say that a family couldn't, be up to 15, or a tribe might, the numbers are meant to be ranges. So the next question is, which stage do you fall into currently? How many employees do you have? In a family with 1 to 9 employees, it seems that, everyone knows each other. Often roles are not that well defined. Everyone's sort of doing whatever needs to be done. As you start to get into a tribe, it's still possible for the CEO and the founders to know everyone. It may continue to be a little informal. There may be some managers that have been hired in some areas, early signs that areas are forming. By the time you get to a village and you have over 100 people, certainly by that point, you've begun to hire specialists. By this time, you likely have a formal human resources department. You may have a legal counsel. You may have hired a controller. Certainly by then, you've probably hired a sales manager and someone to run your marketing. And so again, the stages of growth, each one of them implies changes in the way you do things and the challenges that you face organizationally. So it looks here that the composition of our participants today is, and of course, continue to keep answering as you go along. Generally in the family stage, 70%, with a good number of people in the tribe stage and several in the village stage. So we've got a good bit of diversity here, and that's excellent, and that will help us as we move forward in identifying your challenges. The functional area challenges tend to be different depending on the stage you're in. And so that's where we're going to move into now, is to begin to understand what are some of the specific challenges that you're facing in each of these areas. So something that I want to encourage you to do, since probably everyone is familiar at this point with the business model canvas. It's been out there for a long time. Everybody's seen it. Whereas blitzscaling is something kind of new. And it may not be in any way intuitive. Just want to encourage you to think about blitzscaling in the context of your business model canvas. As you prepare for next week and the additional questions that we'll have and the additional conversations that we'll have about how you scored on your blitzscaling assessment, think about where distribution fits in here. Maybe it fits in the area of your key partners. Think about operational scalability, maybe an aspect of key resources that you have or don't have. Whether or not you have high gross margins could be a function of your cost structure. or it could be a function of your revenue stream. It's going to be different in every case, how you define it, but really just want you to understand that blitzscaling is an additional vocabulary that you can think about in terms of a vocabulary that you already possess, if you've been using the business model canvas in any of your prior work. So now, we'd like to dive in specifically to what are the things that you're looking to get out of the Venture Scaling Bootcamp? What do you feel you need more of in order to be able to scale faster? Now, if these aren't the questions that you think, if you have a response that's other, feel free to type that in over here in the Zoom chat. Because what we're really trying to get at here is, you know, before, during, and after the boot camp. Max says he needs more money. Okay, so does that mean, Max, that you are looking to raise money, that fundraising is a challenge, and you're looking for contacts coming out of the boot camp that might help you raise money? Got it. And Vasily says more quality employees. Okay, so does that mean that from the boot camp, you're hoping to meet people who have networks that you can access to help you recruit, or you're looking for help in terms of where to find? Okay, excellent. So the purpose in asking these directional questions is that, you know, as with anything, you're going to get more out of the bootcamp experience the better prepared you are and the more specific you have defined your needs. So please, in addition to answering this here, take this as a cue in every one of these areas to be highly specific about just what it is that you would like the bootcamp team to help you with before, during, and after the bootcamp. Because if you can come with a specific list of asks, if you've already thought about these, then it makes it much, much easier for us to be able to help you. For example, I need more contacts. Great. A better answer would be, I need to meet people with this title, or people who fit this persona, or I need to meet this particular scientist who works at this particular laboratory in this city because he is or she is the world expert at this topic. So in each one of these areas, I would encourage you, in preparation for the boot camp, to come with a list of answers to this, so that when you say, I need help with this, you can be much more specific. You could say, Jeff, or Chris, or Mariah, I really need help with this specific thing. Can you help with that? It's the best way to make use of our time. Okay, so a more structured way of working. In that area, it would be great to think about, so as it relates to scaling, in a particular area of challenge, what specific tasks, what specific processes within your business are you needing help structuring? Or is it just a general scaling plan that you want us to help you structure? More time to focus on the important things. It's the classic urgency versus importance conversation. Is that a question, when you express that, is that a question of time management? Is that a question of delegation? Is that a question of productivity of other employees, or getting better use out of the time that you spend in meetings, etc.? Please be as specific as you can. New perspectives from successful entrepreneurs. That can be during the boot camp, and that can also be, my company is like this, and I would love it if I could meet other entrepreneurs like me around the world who are tackling similar challenges. Is there any way that you could introduce me to such a person? Or, gee, I'd really like it if you could introduce me to people like this, specific things, right? Okay, I'm happy to share some time with those seeking advisory from successful entrepreneurs. Awesome, Max, thank you. What do you suggest about reaching out to the largest number of youth during our scaling? That's an interesting question. Probably finding ways to access distribution of people who already have large numbers of youths in their networks, and thinking of ways to engage them, to make it worth their while to share what you're doing. I'd like to know, says JR, if our business model is scalable, to decide if we scale it up or adjust it. Perfect. So this is some of the things that we'll be covering in the next webinar as we review the Blitzscaling assessment and talk about the drivers. So again, thank you for your responses here. Please do, if you're able, prior to the boot camp, go ahead and get much more specific in these areas. On a scale of 1 to 10, our next question is, rate where your venture is today on each scaling driver. So here we're not talking specifically about the 6 variables that Chris and Reed have outlined in Blitzscaling. Here we're talking more about traditional scaling challenges, functional area challenges, fundraising, the challenge of going international, finding talent, etc. Keeping in mind that Blitzscaling is really focused on 3 areas: business model, management techniques, and strategy. So here we're getting a little more off into the realm of the non-Blitzscaling questions, which are also very relevant. So as you can see here, as the answers start to come in, and this question takes a little bit longer to answer, you can see the average in the circle, and you can also see the various inflection points along the graph as people are clustering. And kind of what we're looking for here is, are there areas that jump out where everyone generally feels uncomfortable, like they really need more help, or where everyone feels weak, or if there are areas where people feel particularly strong, like strategy is starting to emerge, and technology as areas that it seems in general people feel more confident than in other areas. So Max asks, when you say distribution, I feel like you're using some non-traditional nuance. Can you elaborate? Sure. In this case, in the context of blitzscaling, when we refer to distribution, what we're saying is that in order to blitzscale, in order to move faster than normal, it's generally necessary to gain access to distribution through partnerships. And it's basically based on the understanding that a good product with great distribution will beat a great product with average or poor distribution. And so, again, all of these variables and strategies kind of work together interactively. So if you have fantastic distribution and you can get your product out to everyone, well then, of course, it would make sense to launch a product that embarrasses you and move faster, because this is going to help you get closer to the first mover at scale advantage. So again, it's when you believe you're in this market that incentivizes you to go lightning fast. It's not necessarily the same definition of distribution as you hear it in other terms, but of course it's talking about different distribution channels. All of the distribution channels remain the same as what they were, but if you want to blitzscale, it becomes more important to gain access to them quickly and get through them. Okay, so we've got nearly everyone responding. At least the highest number of responses we've had to any question was 25, and we've got 23 here now. And areas that jump out, again, technology and strategy, people seem to feel more comfortable than other areas on average, whereas the areas where people feel they need the most help are sales, marketing, fundraising, if we had to pick a top three. Great, so this is very helpful. Let's keep moving. And so in terms of the biggest areas that you have for improvement, where would you like to spend time with us during the boot camp? We're going back to the same areas that we just ranked. And these may or may not be the same that you just evaluated. So I'm asking the question in a slightly different way. And I'm asking you to rank here. Okay, so Rizwan has asked, if your customer is not much learned, or let's say not very well educated, like a farmer, and you want to scale your business, what is the best way? What is the best way to use technology if that person is not a techie? And Ruben asks, is the webinar going to be available afterwards? I've missed all of it. Yes, it definitely will be. There will be PowerPoint slides being shared out so that you'll have all of the slides. And inside of those PowerPoint slides, there are links to these questions that will allow you to vote on the questions that you've missed. But essentially what we're looking for here are the averages, or say the largest number of needs. So even if you've missed it, it would be helpful to go back and have your answers here as well, Ruben, even though it may not dramatically affect the outcome here of the group's responses. So scaling our operations, marketing and sales, strategy, interesting, okay. And one of the reasons for asking the question this way, of course, is looking at these traditional functional areas is a little different than looking at blitzscaling. And so we're gonna look at blitzscaling and these, and then we're gonna cross the two and look for the intersections, because of course, there are specific recommendations if you look at the blitzscaling framework in a given stage of organization. So for example, if you're in organizational stage 2, the tribe, and you're struggling with marketing, there are different ways of thinking about blitzscaling in stage 2 and in stage 1 in the area of marketing. And so what we're trying to do is kind of zoom in on a particular cell in a matrix, if you will, and give you the most specific advice from Chris and Reed about blitzscaling in your particular area of challenge. Cool. So marketing, strategy, operations, sales. Got it. Very clear feedback. Thank you. So we're going to continue to move forward. And in these next couple of questions, we're going to give you the opportunity to share some very specific comments. Your comments are going to appear on the screen. So for whatever you picked as your first priority area of focus, it's maybe the area that you ranked yourself lowest on 2 questions ago, or it's perhaps the area that you ranked highest in terms of need. For whatever that first priority area is, tell us a little bit more about your specific challenges. And there's a text box here that you can answer into, and your responses, try to keep them short, are going to start appearing on the screen for everyone to see. We're also going to be able to save these. And so all of your answers will of course be taken into account by the MIT Venture Scaling Bootcamp team and Global Scaling Academy as we work on the right areas of focus for you. Identifying the right customer and the correct channel. Funding shortage. Helping a non-tech market understand the benefits of our product. Okay, funding options for bootstrap company at growth stage. Okay, how to scale efficiently. JRS, is there any way to get a paid one-on-one session with you to review our business model before the boot camp? So JR, the way this is designed is we're doing these boot camps, these webinars in advance, and then we're going to do the actual boot camp. And then after the boot camp, our team is teed up to do one-on-one sessions. That's built into the program. And so it would probably be more useful. In other words, we would be better able to advise you after having met you and worked with you at the boot camp, so that those one-on-one sessions that are already included will be more useful and basically coming from people that understand your business better. So my answer there is not necessary. Just hold on and you'll get that after the boot camp. Okay. Great. This is all really helpful, and it does tend to fall in line with the challenges that were listed on the prior page. Specific challenges about sales, about marketing, about achieving product market fit, about fundraising. Super. This is very helpful. And in the second area, so whatever your second area was. So in other words, if you had ranked your first area as marketing, then ideally in the prior question, you would have entered in marketing questions. So in this case, if your second priority was scaling operations, then put your questions about operations here. So the point of asking this question twice in first and second is we're going to be, even though the answers here are anonymous, we're hoping to get more than one set of answers out of each of you. Now, if nobody has anything left to add here, it could be that you exhausted all of your comments on the prior slide and you commented about all of your challenges. And maybe that's okay too. But again, thinking back to your top and second ranked areas of challenge, in this case, please try to continue answering. Okay, so we're getting some marketing here: product market fit, demand generation, retention, strategy, how to convince customers, how to find a blitzscaling team for marketing and sales, limited talent pool. Excellent. Cool. So I'm going to keep moving forward here. And now, in our final minutes, what specific questions or doubts do you have about blitzscaling? As you've heard it described by Chris last week, as you may have read about it online, or as you heard me summarize it this week, what specific questions would you like us to address during the next during the next webinar next week, which we will dive into much more how blitzscaling affects your business, or during the boot camp? Questions could be, how does it apply to me? Or, I understand network effects are important. What are network effects? Or, I'm not in a blitzscalable business, I don't think. How does this apply to me? Any question is good. How to find the best partners in a new market. How to find the right people to contact. If we have product market fit, is Blitzscaling not for us? What will our schedule be during the boot camp? Okay. How to monitor and measure business success? Are there risks of focusing on growth rather than social impact? So there is obviously a great need, and this is one of the most gratifying aspects of the MIT community, is how many of you are working on social impact, because we do definitely believe that Blitzscaling can and should apply to social impact ventures. There's no reason that it can't. Is the bootcamp oriented towards beginners, or will it fit people with more years of experience or more advanced companies? So that's really a question of design, and that's why we're asking the questions that we're asking today. As you could see, there was a mix of early stage, family stage companies, as well as a very decent representation of companies at later stages. And so we will try to address the scaling and blitzscaling challenges and issues that all face. And I think given the mix, we'll try to find ways to segment during our time together, so that we can pay specific attention to each of your groups, and then of course during the one-on-one sessions afterwards. Cool. How to do fundraising in South America. Excellent. Definitely something we've had experience with, doing business in Mexico and Chile recently. Specific software solutions. This is great. So thanks very much for these responses. These are all really, really helpful. So as we come down to our final minutes, I'd like to discuss what we're going to do next week in the webinar, and then take any final questions that will come up. So webinar 3, we're going to focus on the Blitz Scalability Assessment. So here, we've had an opportunity for you to describe your more general scaling challenges. Now we want to transition into how do you rank yourselves in terms of your ability to Blitz scale, and where you've ranked low, what can we do about that? What can we do to help you address a larger market? What can we do to help you think through how to improve your gross margins or build network effects, improve product market fit, overcome operational scalability challenges? And so if you'd like, and you have the time to spend in the next week, before you take the assessment, or at any time between now and the boot camp, which is approximately 2 months away, we've developed a short course. I'm going to show you real quick. So that short course is on a platform called Bootkick. Bootkick is actually a startup that we met. We're using their platform, and it looks something like this. When you click on that URL, you will come here. You can access it either by web or mobile. And you've seen that we've created a short blitzscaling course with 9 lessons. And each one of them consists of a short video provided by Chris. In some cases, an additional download that we've provided, as well as links to curated content that are available publicly that can help you better prepare and dig into some of these concepts. So as much or as little time as you want to spend on that, we hope it'll be helpful, and it will certainly help you better understanding the concepts that we're asking you to use in evaluating yourself. And then when you're ready, and certainly prior to webinar 3, please do go to our Blitz Scalability Assessment and complete that. Next week, we will use the same interactive tool, Menti, to address your questions by giving you a chance to say, what did you score? What was your score on high gross margins? And so we'll begin to get a collective sense here. So complete that and bring it, have it at the ready so that you can respond online, so that we can get a sense about how the whole group is composed in terms of strengths and weaknesses on the different blitzscaling variables. All right, so we've just got a couple minutes left. Pierce has asked, would you compare this program to some of the top accelerators in the nation? So I think it's important, Pierce, and I'd encourage Mariah and anyone from the MIT bootcamp team to join in here as well. So a bootcamp and an accelerator are usually not the same thing. A bootcamp is short and intense by nature, whereas an accelerator tends to be longer, 3 to 6 months, usually on site. I definitely think in terms of the caliber of the participants and the caliber of the instructors and the mentors that this compares very favorably, but just understand the difference between a boot camp and an accelerator. So I would say this is a good way to up your game quickly, identify opportunities for both strategic pivots and alterations to your business model, as well as quick hits on how to improve different areas. And if you're still at a place that you want to apply for an accelerator, a scaling stage accelerator, this should better prepare you for that. Does anybody have any final questions or comments? We have now reached the 59-minute mark since I started 1 minute late. I don't want to go over your time today, but certainly happy to take any final questions or allow the MIT Venture Scaling Bootcamp team to address any questions either by voice or in chat.
Hi, my name's Jane, and I'm part of our MIT Bootcamps team. And I just want to accompany Jeff on that last question. I think we get this question quite a lot, actually. And I think one of the couple of main things that you'll see different between this and Accelerator are really our lectures and the teachings that we bring in that accompany the day's team exercises. That knowledge is incredibly useful for you in your respective fields, but it also helps guide a lot of the innovative thinking that goes on throughout the week. So you have that aspect, and then you also have the actual focused work on helping you improve scaling your ventures. That, and also many of the people coming to this boot camp will have already gone through one of our boot camps, and that's really useful because they're already up to speed on a lot of the teachings that we do in terms of leadership and team-oriented training. And so I think that will be dramatically different than in past boot camps where everyone's fresh and starting off the same page. We'll have some people with some really great insight that you'll be able to learn from that have gone through our MIT program before. So anyways, thank you, Jeff. I'm going to pass off to Mariah, who runs our seminars, to touch base as well.
Yes, thank you, Jane, for accompanying Jeff's answer. Hi, everyone. So Jeff, thank you so much for our second installment in this series of webinars. We are so excited for webinar number 3. I hope you all enjoyed the interactive style of this e-seminar. I think it's something that we're looking to carry forward. And as Jeff said, that will be a feature of the next e-seminar as well. So I think that most of you have started an application for our Venture Scaling Bootcamp, but for those of you that maybe have not, you can go to our website, and under our bootcamps, you can learn more about it there. And yeah, we are looking forward to reviewing more applications, and we hope everyone has a really wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Mariah. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.